this is actually just a partial list. But look at this. It's sex, gender, sexual orientation, gender identity. I mean, this was actually a large part of the debate. There was actually a very fierce debate. Many of the churches in Cuba opposed recognizing, you know, the non-binary, but they made it into the Constitution after a lot of struggle. Age, ethnic origin, skin color, religious belief, disability. Now here's something that we don't have, you know, that is often missing in the non-discrimination discussion. Certainly it's not in our Constitution about discrimination against people with disability, national or territorial origin. So, you know, these are human rights that are recognized in the Cuban Constitution. And Cuban Constitution, unlike the U.S. Constitution, also recognizes socioeconomic human rights, right? So the right, it says the following are human rights: that housing, and this is again a partial list. I just put the most important ones here. Housing is a human right. Public health is a human right, and it's a free system. Education is a human right. It's free from kindergarten through postgraduate. Physical education. So physical education, the interesting thing is that if you go into a park, not every park has it, but if you go to some parks, public parks in Cuba, you will find gymnastic equipment just sitting out there in the open. And so people just go to the park. If they want to exercise, they just go to the park. And so that's a contribution that the government makes, and makes it free to everyone.
Natural environment is also.
Yeah. So saying that the natural environment is to be preserved, and for the enjoyment of all the people. People have a right to enjoy that natural environment, a right to clean, drinkable water, healthy, adequate diet, truthful information about consumer goods. This is in the Constitution. Artistic and cultural life. So, for example, I mean, I had the opportunity on the first trip of this year to go to the Cuban National Ballet. It's a beautiful, amazing performance, and for a Cuban citizen, it's just a few Cuban pesos. So it's accessible. So the arts in Cuba are accessible to every Cuban. So marriage. So this is part of that debate about gay rights, and so the article that sets this off, and this was probably the single most controversial part of this Constitution. So it defines marriage as a social and legal institution. It is one of the organizational structures of families. It is based upon free consent and on the equality of rights, obligations, and legal capacity of spouses. So this is what was in the final Constitution that was approved in February. Now, there were a lot of changes from the original, the first draft. But when I read this, I think that the essence of what was in the initial draft finally came through in the final draft. So the first draft said, marriage is a voluntary union between two legally eligible people for the purpose of creating a shared life. It rests on the absolute equality of rights and duties of spouses who are obligated to maintain the home and to raise their children through joint effort in a way that is compatible with the development of their social activities. So once again, it talks about two spouses.
Does it give tax benefits? I mean, why would people get married?
Pardon?
I said, does it give tax benefits or something? Why
Shall
would
we
people
ask
get
it?
married?
Tax benefits.
Why would people get married is the question.
Oh, okay.
Questions at the
Yeah,
end.
questions afterwards, right?
Okay. Yeah. Well. Okay. So.
You can talk about it later.
Well, since you asked it, I'll try to answer it. I don't know whether there's a tax benefit.
Any benefit.
Yeah, I don't know that there's a tax benefit or there any particular
Okay.
quantifiable benefits. I mean, people. I mean, family. Of course, is this is a Latin culture, and family is extremely valued in all Latin cultures. So this is about the direct election of the National Assembly. Again, this is something that predates this Constitution, but like everything, the wording has changed a little bit, and but this is putting it into the formalizing it in the Constitution, where we say that the National Assembly of People's Power is composed of representatives who are elected through a free, equal, and direct secret vote of the electors. So it's direct election. It's not a pyramidal vote where you vote for the local level, municipal, provincial, and then a National Assembly. So these changes are attempting to which have taken place over time, have been an attempt to democratize, to increase the direct participation of the voters. Independence of the judiciary. So I wanted to emphasize this because one of the hallmarks of democracy is the independence of the judiciary. And so there are two articles that bear on this. One is 148, which says the courts constitute a system of state organs structured with functional independence from any other. The People's Supreme Court exercises the maximum judicial authority, and its decisions are definitive. In 150, the magistrates and judges, in their function of imparting justice, are independent and do not owe obedience except to the law. Additionally, they are irremovable. They cannot be removed from their positions as long as there are no concurrent legal actions for the cessation of their duties. In other words, if they haven't done anything illegal, they cannot be removed. So I think that the law is very clear on the independence of the judiciary. So these are just some of the things that I saw around town. There's a gay bar. There's several, but this is the one that was right near to my hotel. This is the Capitolio. So the Capitolio the renovation is almost finished right now, and for many years the Capitolio, which was built as the Capitol building for the Legislative Assembly, was built back in the I think 1930s, and then it sort of after the revolution, well actually before, it fell into disrepair and disuse, and the National Assembly would actually meet near to the Plaza de la Revolución. And now, because of the renovation, there's a tremendous amount of renewal that's going on, has been going on for a number of years in old Havana Vieja. And the renovation of the Capitolio is one of those, which is almost complete, and the National Assembly has moved back into the Capitolio, and it has a beautiful chamber. It's really a stunning room. So the National Assembly meets here, and all these renovations are actually part of they are timed to be ready for September, because September the city of Havana will celebrate its 500th birthday. Now, this is a church. It's a Methodist church. And I just walked into it at random, and I saw that it's active. There are people in the church. It's clean. It's maintained, and there are even young people there. So it just proves that there is genuine freedom of religion.
It says Iglesia.
Iglesia. Yeah. So it's a Methodist church, universal
Methodist. I'm
Methodist.
reading Methodist.
Yeah.
Never mind.
Can I just,
Yes.
the colors are so non-church-like, you know.
Uh-huh.
It's not like going into churches here, there's no stained glass, there's no vibrant colors, it's not pastel colors, and there's no Jesus in it. It's interesting, I
Yeah.
kind of like it.
But it was built. This is a building that was built as a church. So from the outside you see it, and it's obviously a church.
Oh,
Yeah.
oh,
Okay, so this is okay. So before I get to this, so what was covered in the U.S. media? So I was looking at various newspapers, looking at broadcasts, going on the internet. You know, what was reported in the U.S. media about this constitutional referendum in Cuba, and quite frankly, very, very little. Most newspapers did not cover it. Most television channels did not cover it. And so there was almost a blackout of this election in Cuba. And it's really quite significant to change a constitution. By the way, it contrasts with the way that we modify our constitution here, right? Which is a very, very laborious process, one amendment at a time. And actually in more countries of the world, constitutions are changed by setting up a constituent assembly, electing a constituent assembly, asking that constituent assembly to rewrite the constitution, because you don't want to do this every few years. You want it, if you have a lot of changes, let's get them all done, and then put it to a vote of all the voters in the country. That's the way Egypt did it. That's the way that Venezuela did it. So most other countries in the world change their constitutions in a concerted way once every few decades. And that was not covered in the U.S. media. The only article that I could find was one by the New York Times. And so I took this article and I said, okay, let's analyze it, because there's a lot of controversy about the reporting of even the New York Times. If you of all the news sources in the U.S., probably the New York Times is the best, the most comprehensive mainstream source of news by far. But even take the New York Times and let's see what they actually said. So the headline was, "Constitution is approved in Cuba amid opposition." Now, remember, this was approved by 90% vote. So, here they're trying to say, oh, there was opposition, there was 10% opposition. Okay. And then they said that, and I imagine that these were, the numbers that they had were probably before the vote count was complete, and that's why they're a little bit different from the final numbers. But they're opining about 15% of the voters who stayed home, as if that's a big deal. So they're saying basically that 15% of the voters who stayed home and those who voted no represent an unusual amount of opposition.
But they say 87 said yes, so their math is wrong. It adds up to 102.
Yeah, no. Well, no, because it's not just the percentage that voted yes of those who voted, but it's also those who didn't vote. So that's why the numbers don't add up. And then in the second paragraph, so they say that it reflects this opposition reflects the growing confidence of diverse groups that have pushed back against the official decisions in recent months and forced the government to negotiate. The government was not forced to negotiate. The government put this draft constitution out to the people. It said, please comment on this. Okay? So the government invited people to make comments and propose changes that were actually incorporated into the final draft. And the third paragraph. But the document, that is the Constitution, maintains the one-party state and socialist management of the economy, does not recognize the separation of powers. I just showed you the separation of powers of the judiciary in the Constitution. Okay, so the New York Times does lie sometimes.
Sometimes.
Well, where's that thought? You gotta back this.
We're so surprised.
Okay, so I think that's the core of what I have. I have more if you want to see a little bit about some of the changes, but if you want to, like at this point, open up the discussion, we can do that and maybe come back to the other slides later if there's interest.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you, sir.
Before we